Welcome back to the Intercooler podcast, everybody. This is episode 271 with Dan Prosser and Andrew Frankel. And we're joined by a guest this week. He is Michael Mallock of RML. Now, fret not. Michael Mallock might not be a familiar name. RML might not be a familiar name. But we're gonna come to that. We're going to ask Michael to explain exactly who he is, exactly what RML is. But just to sort of set the scene, I like to think of RML as the A team of automotive engineering. You know, if you're a race team or if you're an OEM and you have a problem, an automotive engineering problem, maybe you can employ RML.
If you can find them.
If you can find them. Michael, do you think that sort of vaguely sums it up?
I think that sums it up really well. Yeah.
Good.
I described this recently as being the people who do jobs for OEMs that the OEMs can't. So.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So you are the A team.
Yeah.
Now, RML, I think stands for Ray Mallock Limited. Is that right?
It did originally. Yes.
Okay. Ray being your old man. Andrew, do you know Ray?
Only a little bit, insofar as when Michael's dad was racing, and he raced very competitively at a high level. He was involved with the Aston Martin Nimrod project of the early 1980s, so 82, 83, 84. And he raced with Mike Salmon, who was one of our closest family friends. So I knew him a little bit through that, but more by that association than directly. But I presume, Michael, he's fit and well and still enjoying life.
Well, he made his classic Le Mans debut this weekend just gone.
Oh, is that right? What was he driving?
He was driving a Bentley Blower continuation.
Oh,
Andrew did that.
I did that 2 years ago.
I know you did. Yeah. So familiar steps, but I fear that he didn't last quite as long as you did.
Okay.
The engine went bang halfway up the Mulsanne on lap one, race one. Which is disappointing, but he enjoyed the qualifying, enjoyed the testing. In the nights, despite the auxiliary lights not working and an oil leak every time he turned left. So yeah, he's enjoying life.
So he's still out there, and he's still, was that like a sort of one-off, or is he still doing quite a lot of racing?
He's competing mainly in his U2. So the Mallock U2 Mark II, which Arthur, my grandfather, built in 1960.
Right.
So that's his favourite car, and this is going to be probably his last big attempt at Goodwood, because that class of car have got the race at the Revival this year. So that is arguably the most important vehicle in our 75,000 square feet. Getting ready for that.
I'm not going to allow us to be delayed by this for long, but
Yeah.
What were his thoughts of those? But I'm really asking this sort of personally because I can remember those, although I was 17, 18 at the time, and didn't actually go. But I can remember those Nimrod races at Le Mans in 82, 3, 4, and presumably that was a pretty special thing for him to be involved with. I mean, I know that it all went a bit wrong at the end, but great looking cars, and I think in 82 they were like first home behind the Porsches, weren't they?
They were very competitive. Oh, don't worry, Dan, this is on topic, because the Nimrod turned into the first RML project in 1984.
Yeah.
So it's all right, the circle closes. So Ray took over the engineering of that. First year, the car wasn't hugely competitive. Ray then rebodied the car, and I think it was something like 14 seconds lap quicker or so.
Okay.
With the new body, that was when people were understanding aero more, but not quite enough, if you know what I mean. So that was a great car, and I shared it a couple of times with him in some historic groups here as well.
Did you?
Yeah, which is great fun.
Gosh.
So I want to hear some of the history of RML, but can you just give us an idea, and you've hinted at it already, of where you are, the size of the operation, and maybe some of the things you've got going on there at the moment?
Yes, so we are in the middle of the Carbon Fibre Valley, as they call it, with Northamptonshire, where we've been based for 20 or so years, I think. We are 3 units, 75, 80,000 square feet, about 120 or so staff, I think, at the moment. That's across our 4 divisions, which we've kind of reshuffled the business into last year as part of our 40th anniversary celebrations. We've devised the company into motorsport, which kind of does what it says on the tin. Most relevant area or programming that at the moment is to the ongoing support of the British Touring Car Championship. So we supply all the standardized components on the chassis and suspension side for that. We have the engineering division, so that will do white label engineering for OEMs who, excuse me, who need the stuff doing that they can't deliver themselves. That covers anything from a new suspension setup on a low volume vehicle to an entire run of continuation cars for another OEM, or development and the support to build of someone's top sports product in their line to make that better, and potentially a track version, and badges, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of stuff the engineering division does.
Sorry, Mark, are you allowed to say who any of these OEMs are, or is it all very much done
well
on the QT?
Mostly. Bizzarini, we recently supported with their continuation program. So any imagery you will have seen of the Bizzarini 5300 GTs in build, that was done here by the team here. So we completely redesigned the car to be as close as possible aesthetically, but a bit safer than it was when it's classed at Le Mans in '65. Resourced, fabricated the chassis, designed a new composite bodywork, and built the whole thing actually in the area I'm in now. So those type of projects, or various other things which I mainly can't talk about, which is why most people don't know who we are.
Yeah.
The third division is our power division. So power was our engines department 15 or so years ago. We kind of transitioned from combustion towards batteries and EV, but predominantly in hybrid technology. First big battery project we did was the Zeod at Le Mans.
Oh, of course.
Which was a huge technical challenge that kind of set us on it.
And was that the first car to do an electric racing lap at Le Mans?
An electric lap at Le Mans, yeah.
Yeah.
So it would do 12 laps on combustion engine. It would then switch to EV for the 13th lap. That lap would be around GT kind of pace, somewhere around that speed.
Oh, so still a good speed.
Yeah.
It's still a decent speed, yeah. And it's 300 kilometers an hour in EV mode as well. So
goodness.
Yeah, that was a good thing. But,
and presumably you somehow also, on top of all that, managed to make it quite light.
Well, incredibly light. I think the whole car was 723 kilos with the driver with a full tank of fuel in it. Yeah, it was a very light car.
Remind me, how did that car relate to the Delta Wing?
It was inspired by the Delta Wing. So Ben Bowlby was the guy who came up with the Delta Wing concept initially.
Yeah.
We were actually engaged by Nissan to do an engineering review of the Delta Wing back when they first got involved in that, basically to make sure it didn't topple over when it got to the end of the pit lane, which it didn't. Big tick on that. We then created a 1.6 litre 4-cylinder direct injection turbo engine for the Delta Wing, which was sort of conceptually close to the engine in the Nissan Juke. So that was the marketing story that tied it all together.
But it was a pure racing engine in reality.
Yes, it was. Yeah. I think the throttle body was Nissan. I think so. It was one piece. And the cam cover was Nissan.
Okay.
So, we then did all the engineering support, built the car, ran the car at Le Mans and Petit Le Mans as well. So the next concept on from that was the Zeod. So very much inspired, no IP sharing, but the tyres were the same because Michelin didn't want to reinvest
of course.
Specific tyre. And that drove the weight target. Unfortunately, the sums were a bit wrong when the initial concept was made, and there was the belief that a battery would need to be, I think it was 40 kilos to do a lap. We thought it would be 140-ish. I think it ended up being 152. So we had an extra 100 kilos to try and lose within the car to keep with the whole mass target. So that was a challenge. Very short-lived race, which unfortunately was caused by marketing forcing a change of gearing, because 300.1 kilometers an hour wasn't fast enough. They wanted to go faster in EV mode, which meant we were forced to change change one of the gears, which put a resonance in and killed the gearbox after about 30 minutes during the race, which was a shame, but these things happen.
That's racing, isn't it?
But great learning for us
in
terms of battery technology. We then delivered the Neo EP9 for Next EV, as they started off with, and then Neo, big Chinese OEM. That was a pure electric hypercar with active aero, active ride, torque vectoring.
And is that the car that set the Nürburgring?
Yes, that's correct.
With Peter Dunbrek driving.
Yes. Yes.
Gotcha.
So that already gives everybody listening and watching an idea of what RML is up to. But there's a fourth division, isn't there?
There is. Yeah, Bespoke. So Bespoke is now the area I'm focusing on. Bespoke is basically our B2C division, and it's me coming up with the cars that I think are the best cars in the world and getting those out to the public.
All right, well, listen, let's park that for now. We'll come back to it because I want to hear about it. And Andrew, I know we've both driven one of them.
Yes.
So we can talk about that in a little bit. But let's just briefly do the history. So what can you tell us about the early days of RML when it was founded in the 1980s?
So founded in 1984, predominantly to support racing. Going back a step from that, the first Mallock customer car was sold by Arthur in 1958.
So Mallock, for people who don't know, because if you are in that world and you're quite into historic racing, most people will know what a Mallock is. But if you're not, you probably won't have a clue. So could you just give us briefly, tell us the sorts of cars that your grandfather made and how successful they were?
Well, Arthur was a contemporary of Colin Chapman. So that Lotus and Mallock kind of started off alongside. Arthur's whole sort of point and view was that it should be simple, straightforward, inexpensive.
Yeah.
And in fact, the reason that they were called U2s was U2 can have a race car like mine. Take a U2 can have a body like mine. So very simple frame chassis. Initially, it used suspension components and gearboxes from things like all kinds of stuff you could get from a scrapyard for not much money.
Ford Anglias and all
that kind of thing. Austin 7s before that, and so on and so on.
Just like Lotus.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. But I like to think that Arthur was a better engineer, but not as good a businessman as Colin. And that kind of set the standard from there on. I mean, Arthur, we found trophies of his from 1937 or 8 from him doing trials in his specials. So the engineering and the performance and the competitiveness has always been in the Mallock DNA. So Ray raced, as you mentioned. He was British Formula Atlantic champion, and when driving the sports cars for RML, he was world sports car champion and so on and so on. So very competitive racing driver.
Can I just jump in on that? Because I was doing a bit of research and I saw that in 1997, your dad Ray competed in several rounds of the FIA European Formula 2 Championship. The first race that season was at Silverstone, and your dad finished second behind some bloke called René Arnoux.
77, not 97.
77.
Did I say 97?
Yeah.
77, of course, 77. Yes. But yeah, I mean, if he's having a good old ding dong with blokes like Arnoux, he's a proper driver, isn't he?
Yeah.
He still is a very good driver. He never quite got the Formula One break that he should have done.
He did do some Formula One though, didn't he? So the British Formula One.
British Formula One.
Yeah.
And I think was it Aurora?
Aurora AFX, I think they called it. Yeah.
But he, like me, is 6'4", so doesn't fit particularly well.
Michael, it's a problem I know well.
Indeed. In fact, he was due to have an F1 test the day after racing at Thruxton in Formula Atlantic and had a huge crash, split the car in half, broke his collarbone. I think some bloke called Nigel Mansell got the test instead. As it turned out, that's the story. But fantastic driver, yeah, great, and still very competitive now. So RML, initially the Nimrod project, that was the first program. So throughout the 80s, very much focused on sports cars, World Sports Car Championship. So we were the Aston Martin Nimrod, the Ecos team. So we merged with Ecos to do the C2 cars, sort of 85 through 7-ish, that kind of period. We then, I was about 5, but yeah, we as a business did a JV with Aston Martin again to design and develop the AMR1.
Of course.
So that was designed and built by the team led by Ray and Richard Williams.
Yes.
On the other side, Richard, who's was my godfather.
Amazing car. I can remember watching it race at Le Mans. The noise of the thing.
It was a hell of a thing, wasn't it?
Hell of a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. The AMR2 was going to be much better. It sorted the cooling issue, which caused the drag, the large amounts of drag, and so on. But then PAG bought Aston. PAG had Premier Auto Group had Jaguar and Aston Martin and other things, and it didn't make sense for both brands to be competing. So the Aston project was stopped, sadly.
Had the car been built, or was it still on the drawing board?
I think there were wind tunnel models.
Yeah.
I think the tubs have been kicked off. Because they were the first. The MR1 was the first carbon tubbed sports car, I believe.
Is that right? So it predated the Jaguars.
Yes. Yeah.
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 Wow.
It was Max Bostrom was Ray's chief designer, who then went on to found Dimag Wheels, I think. But lots of innovation all the way through. So that program stopped. RML became RML again instead of being the Aston sort of co-branded project. And then got into touring cars. So touring cars is probably where we're best known. We initially ran some privateer Vauxhalls. We developed those Vauxhalls and they became a lot quicker than the works cars. That was developed by my dad with his great friend David Leslie. We then won the works Vauxhall contract, won the BTCC with John Cleland in '95. Then moved to Nissan, ran the Nissan Primera program through the end of the '90s, won all 3 championships, certainly in '99. I think the teams and the drivers in '98 as well. At the same time as that, we sort of edged back into sports cars as well. We were engaged by an American company called Celine to design and build their first supercar.
Yes.
So the Celine S7, America's first supercar, designed in Wellingborough. Slight sub note, but that didn't look as good on the poster apparently, so they left that off. So we designed and built that car, built the first 7 or so race cars, I think, and the first couple of road cars. Fantastic car. That was one of my favourite personal racing memories. Was in a Celine at Spa in the middle of the night in the 24 hours, coming up out the pit lane on brand new slicks, and it starts drizzling, and it drizzled for the next 2 hours, and it was bloody brilliant.
And you stayed out on slicks?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. So fantastic car. But lots of other stuff around that period as well in different projects.
Yeah, some rallying as well.
We did, yeah. With GM's partner for F2 and Super 1600.
Yeah.
So with Opel and Vauxhall, we did a little bit of oval racing when ASCAR was launched, which was aiming to be the European version of NASCAR. We did that and won that twice. We ran an IndyCar in the race at Rockingham, Darren Manning, Team St George. That was good. It was good right until the last pit stop when something failed, and I forget what it was, the piece of pit equipment. So we've kind of touched in all forms of motorsport, but touring cars and Le Mans is kind of what we're best known for our sporting heritage, if you like.
Goodness me. I mean, there is an enormous amount of fascinating stuff going on within those four walls, isn't there?
Given this is a company that, I mean, you and I have heard of RML, but I suspect most people haven't.
Yeah.
And just, the amount of, I mean, as you said, there's barely an area of motorsport in which you haven't been involved over the last few decades.
That's correct. Well, and now motorsport is actually a very small part of who we are and what we do. It's only 12 to 15% of revenue now.
Yeah, I mean, and you talked about we'll talk about the bespoke stuff at length shortly. But in terms of those sort of four departments, do they sort of split up quite easily in terms of the size of those departments and the revenue that they bring in, or is one much bigger than all the others?
It varies, and they all support each other. So bespoke, as an example, doesn't have any specific resource really other than myself. So the engineering is supplied by the engineering team. The powertrain support is done by power, and that all kinds of works around. Largest by revenue is probably the power division at the moment. That's driven by batteries. So we've focused very much on hybrid battery technology rather than BEV, because I've sort of thought that's the right route to go.
Yeah, well, I think the market agrees with you.
Yeah. So we've recently announced that we've got the world's most power dense battery system in any homologated road application, which is quite a feat.
What's that going in?
That is going in an American hypercar, the Zinger, CZINGR.
Yeah.
21C. So that has a V8 with about 800 horsepower. A small hybrid battery pack which we supply, so that's 4.5 kilowatt hours, but I think 400 kilowatt peak output. So that's a lot of power. But the most impressive thing with that is what's called the C rating. So the C is the charge and discharge rate. Sort of 8 to 10 is a good C rate. This has it can peak at 200. So that kind of that shows.
And to do things like that, are you using dramatically different technologies? But presumably this is still ultimately lithium ion based.
Yep. No, so it's still based on a big AA, effectively.
Yeah.
That type of cell. We don't do anything really in cells. The clever stuff is how you package it all together. So it's really doing what RML has always done, or Mallock have always done. It's taking elements or bits that exist and repackaging them in a way that makes it, X 0.5 better.
Yeah. And are you constantly investigating new technologies? I mean, are you sort of pursuing solid state and that sort of thing, or do you just sort of concentrate on the here and now?
We're constantly doing R&D and revision of what's going on in the wider market. Hydrogen is something that we have been looking at and continue to look at quite closely. We're keeping an eye on everything that's in the market. I think we had about 4 years where there was no customer work for the powertrain division, but we spent that time doing our own R&D, doing investigation into all the elements around what goes into a battery pack, what makes it good. We've got last time I checked, we had a full data set for sort of 400-ish battery cells. So we know the absolute minutiae of what goes into them. So battery cells, they have a spec sheet, but that's like the miles per gallon on in a car brochure. It's nonsense. So we have 4 basically containers out in the yard where we do full destructive testing, and they get cut in half and CT scanned and all this kind of stuff. So that's how you make the difference, and that kind of development work is always ongoing. We've got some fantastic technology with the laser welder, which it's sort of self-checking. It measures for each weld. It measures the depth, the strength of it, the cleanliness, and all that kind of stuff while it's all going round. It's just constantly improving and evolving all these little bits.
So this is why I wanted to get Michael on to talk about RML, because this company, you probably haven't heard of it, but it is an engineering powerhouse with extraordinary capabilities. And it's not just a race team or sort of white label race team. It's much, much more than that. Working right at the vanguard of road car technology as well. So how much of that was in place, Michael, though, when you took over the reins? I know you're not CEO these days, but you were for a long time. And did you consciously make significant steps within the business, or did it all sort of happen naturally?
So I did an apprenticeship in the business when I was 16, actually, while I was racing. So I know the business extremely well. I spent time in the design office, in the electrical department, fabricating a new rear end on my Mark 18 when I stuck it in the wall backwards at Clearways, driving the van in stores, all that kind of stuff. So I know the base of the business very, very well. I went off and raced myself for many years, came back in a kind of commercial role, and the first project I did was the Nissan Juke R, which I think you both remember.
Yeah.
And that was me trying to move the business away from motorsport, which is incredibly fickle, into areas that it could use the skill sets that it's developed and it has in complementary ways. So I think I took over. I was CEO for 7 or 8 years or so, but I was working very closely with Ray, obviously, before that, and moving us away from the peaks and troughs of motorsport into these areas, and very much pushed the focus on the battery side of things, because I thought that was a good area to invest in and develop the best tech there is. So it was kind of here, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
But Ray and I worked very closely before I took over as CEO. Now Paul Dickinson is our CEO now. So we put him in place on January 1st, and I've moved out of the wider role just to focus on the big piece.
So it looks like you've restructured the business a bit. You've put a CEO in place primarily so that you can step away from running the business day to day and just go and dick around with fast cars.
Yeah, good, isn't it? Yeah.
And this is the Bespoke division, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah. So that is exactly it, and it is. It's it's doing the really fun stuff.
Yeah. So I think the first car under the Bespoke banner was the short wheelbase, which we both had a go in. Andrew, can you give us a minute or two on driving the RML short wheelbase, and then we'll get Michael to explain what it is.
So we had it. Where were we? Up at Anglesey. And also in North Wales. And this is a car which looks like a Ferrari 250 short wheelbase, the classic late 50s, early 60s, the car that Sterling won 2 TTs in at Goodwood in 1960, 1961. But underneath it, the start point is a 550 Maranello. And I could just remember getting in this thing, and not only is it unbelievably beautiful and sounds wonderful, it just does skids absolutely everywhere. And I can just remember, we had a lot of really interesting cars up there. A lot of quite exotic mid-engine stuff, and
it was driver's car.
But Britain's best driver's car is what Autocar calls it. We internally it's always just known as handling day, because it's all about how cars handle. And there were cars there. There would have been some GT 911s there. There was probably a Ferrari there. I can't remember what else was there. And they were all very impressive in their own way. And then there was this car which just actually reminded you what got you to love driving in the first place, because it was so communicative. It was so beautifully balanced. And I can remember thinking, I don't know what I'd have to do to spin this thing, because you could get it to absurd angles and keep your foot in and just ride it out. And it was just, I can remember getting out of the car and said, I'm really sorry, I've got to go and drive something less entertaining now. And just because I just knew that nothing else I drove that day, whether it was technically better or worse, there'd be plenty of stuff which would have been far quicker. But nothing else that day was as much fun as that. It was just fantastic, and it was lovely on the road because it rides properly, and The interior is beautiful, so there's that fantastic sense of occasion that goes with it, and then you just get out and look at the thing, and it looks amazing. And it was, my kind of car. Not my kind of budget, sadly, but there you go.
Happy with that, Michael?
Yeah, that'll do. That was the whole point of it. The whole point was bringing back the fun of driving and the engagement and the simplicity, but the tactility.
So, I mean, people listening to me just now might have just thought that you just sort of, plonked another body on a 550 Maranello, but there was a bit more to it. So, can you just take us through what you do? I mean, have you made them all now?
We've made a few. Yeah, there's a few. I'm looking at one now out my office window actually.
Okay. So this is still an extant project then. This is still ongoing.
To be honest, we're kind of trying not to, because we're focusing on P39,
which we'll get to in a minute. Yeah,
and also great product, great flag waving, terrible business case. As an example, there's £85,000 worth of machine metal on the interior.
On the interior?
Okay.
Yeah. So everything is bespoke.
Yeah.
The air vents are machined from billet. Because I was quite particular about what everything had to be. But it was mainly a showcase. It was
a calling card, wasn't it?
Exactly that. Yeah. It's a way to tell the wider world, including some of our customer base and people who weren't our customers at the time, some of the stuff we do. The interior is a great way to show that we don't just make racing cars.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it was, it's a good fun project, but it's not a 550 with a new body slapped on top. So we use a 550 as a base predominantly so that it can be owned in the US and driven on the road. So it retains the identity, or it can retain the identity of the 550 donor car it's based on. So it has the smallest amount of the centre of the chassis that you can kind of get away with. Use the engine and gearbox because they're bloody brilliant, and why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And they sound glorious.
But you completely rebuild those, didn't you?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Fully rebuilt. It's interesting actually that the new pistons that you buy from Ferrari Classic 8 aren't actually within the weight tolerance that they say they're meant to be. So, we're at that level of detail. Remachining brand new pistons to make sure that they're correct, etc.
Yeah.
So I think in the book when the 550 was launched, it was like 487 or something horsepower, or 478. Most of the engines that we took out of donors or we used from donors were sort of dynoing at 420 or so. When we'd rebuilt them, they were at 470. So probably as close to that number as they've ever been, actually. Two-piece carbon fiber body, so it very much looks old, but it's effectively it's a modern supercar construction with some old Ferrari bits underneath, and it looks old.
Yeah, but you don't call it, and you wouldn't call it. So the reason you call it an RML short wheelbase, is that because you just want it to be identified as an RML, or actually has it moved so far from what it started life as, is that you would be nervous about putting a Ferrari badge on it?
Yes, because it's not really a Ferrari anymore.
Yeah.
Frankly, it's not trying to be a Ferrari. It's inspired by that car and other cars of that era. There's a lot of Zagato in it, actually, if you look in the right places. But it is an all-new design. If we wanted to do a replica, we could have done a replica, but that was the roof height was set with me sat next to another 6'4" guy with room for helmets. So we did a buck mocking everything up. That set the roof height, then that set the whole rest of the body.
Yeah.
We actually spent 3 months longer in the studio than we planned to, because the first cut of the clay looked terrible. It looked great in the data, but absolutely awful at the first cut. So a lot of rework to get it right. A lot of focus on detail. The sound was great. That's because we worked with a fantastic partner on the exhaust design and delivery. But as an example, with the level of detail, we simulated the whole air path from coming in through hood scoop through the combustion chamber out and through the tailpipe to get the note how I wanted the note to be, which is just fine and chilled, so you could chat at 70, 80 miles an hour, but then properly screaming when you're at full throttle and starting to get some revs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a super cool car. I had a quick go in one. It is a mega thing, and that's right. The point of it was to sort of announce RML to the wider world, as a flag waving exercise. This is who we are. This is what we do. But it also launched the Bespoke division, and now the big project within Bespoke is the P39. Tell us all about that.
So P39, P39 is the code name. Each whole vehicle project here at RML has a P number, so it is the 39th whole vehicle project. That's been a code name, but it's kind of sticking now.
Yeah, okay.
So it is my version of the best 911 that there could be. So for me, that again is the widest capability window. You mentioned things like GT3s and so on earlier, and the Porsche GTX ranges are absolutely fantastic, incredible on the track, but certainly on UK roads are not to my taste. You've both driven the short wheelbase, so you get an idea of how I like a car to feel and flow. So we have developed a Porsche 911 based on the 992.1 Turbo S that has a full new carbon body. It has a wider track. It has a longer wheelbase. It has new bespoke aero and suspension systems, which are driver control, but also semi-active. So you have active aero. You've got three aero positions, including a driver-operated DRS. Got 3 ride heights. When you're in the most extreme mode, it will deliver more downforce than a GT3 RS. With the power pack, it has over 920 horsepower, because a Turbo S needs more power, of course.
We all know that.
Both agree. It will do a 630 something around the Nordschleife. You then drive off the Nordschleife, turn everything back to road mode, and 96.8% of the time it has the same wheel rate as a Turbo S. So it can go from
630 something. That's sort of AMG1 territory, isn't it?
630 something. It's quick. It's pretty quick.
So and this is in your simulations, presumably.
Yeah, and will you go and prove it one day?
Well, we keep saying it's going to be quick around there, so we sort of really shouldn't we?
I think so.
Yeah, it's great. A couple of the customers that we've got are really engaged and really want to support that element of it as well. So we may well put our money where our mouth is at some point soon.
Okay, it sounds to me like there may be a plan.
Yeah,
maybe.
Okay.
So I love a 911. Everyone loves a 911. We talk about it as our GT Hypercar study. So the concept of it was, if the hypercar class at Le Mans ended up being what it was initially planned to be, which was based on road vehicles, what would a 911 look like as that? So like the GT1 of the 90s.
I was going to say it's a modern it's a modern version of that. Wow. And what stages of the project at now?
So I have the prototype that you would have seen in the bare carbon.
Yeah.
Just there. We have 2 other customer cars in build alongside. We have one with our powertrain partner having its update, and lots more on the way. So I think we've got 5 in build at the moment, and next batches of donor cars are arriving.
So
in the next couple of weeks.
So you'll have a running car soon.
We have got the running prototype. So that ran for the first time at an event at Sywell Aerodrome, which is 2 miles down the road from here, which a friend of mine organises, Supercar Fest. So we had that as the target event. One, because it's a good event to show this type of car at, but also too because it's down the road. So we bought 300 tickets for all the staff and their families and that kind of thing. So they came and joined. The prototype is going through all its development work at the moment, doing a huge amount of different testing, the type of stuff that we normally do at Millbrook and on the road and on track and all that kind of stuff as well. It's just having its active hydraulic systems fitted at the moment. So until now, it's been passive in terms of how you can set the ride height in the aero mode. We've just finished all the safety case stuff and the bench testing for the active systems, and that's now going into the car. And we will be showing the first customer version at the end of August.
Gosh. And will you do variants of it? If, I don't know, somebody said they wanted a two-wheel drive version or they wanted one with a GT3 RS engine in it, or is it all going to be fairly spec from that point of view?
I have always wanted it to be kind of donor agnostic for exactly that reason. So, Turbo S as a base is great in loads of ways. There's always an element of top trumps with these type of cars as well, and this customer base. So, saying it's got 900 and something horsepower helps. My dream spec back at the start of the project was rear-wheel drive manual 600 horsepower.
Yeah.
That's
so say all of us.
Yeah. So, we've got a couple of customers who do want to do it. With one who does want to have a GT3 RS based one, which is going to sound great and be very engaging. The plan is just like that at the moment, and we're building 39 customer versions. That's all. We've got some pretty wild specs. They're looking really good, and they're going to be sort of coming out at a rate of initially one a month and being pulled forward a bit after that.
Wow! It seems like a fascinating project. So I wonder if we could just sort of broaden our perspective here a little bit. We on this podcast often talk about the threat that we feel the enthusiast scene is facing at the moment. There's legislation. You won't be able to buy a combustion engine in the UK after 2035. There might be an exemption for very, very low volume things. It's getting harder and harder, it seems, to enjoy fast cars on the road these days. But in amongst all of that, there's this enormous groundswell of independent companies like yours building cars that are just tickling the likes of us, like nothing else out there. And so there's this sort of counter trend against the macro trend, spearheaded by the likes of RML. And it actually just seems like the enthusiast scene from that point of view is thriving at the moment. And is that what you're seeing as well?
Very much so. The market is moving. The consumer choice is lessening in a lot of cases because of legislation. So it's not just a 2035 thing. It's all the stuff that's now. There was a huge investment by lots of people into electric hypercars, and I think in total probably 20 or so have been sold by everyone wrapped up together.
Honestly, genuinely, that's more than I thought.
Yeah, I think there's a UK OEM that did one. I think I heard about 4 of those were sold. I think Rimac had sold maybe 6 of their first thing, because no one likes them. These types of cars, whether it's a £500,000 update to an existing combustion car, or it's a £3 million hyper special, whatever, they're not bought for a reason. They're bought as an emotional purchase.
Yeah.
And electric cars are absolutely incredible, but have no soul from a performance perspective. So the Neo EP9 that we did, a megawatt of power, that's 1,368 horsepower. And it's bonkers. The 16th and final car we built, I drove on a shakedown at Frontingthorpe, actually. And it had 3 power modes. So do the first couple of laps in sort of 600, then go up to 900, then do 1 megawatt. And I went through this sort of little chicaney bit back onto the back straight, and then was in a megawatt mode because already it felt a bit boring, and went down the straight in megawatt mode and did 180-ish miles an hour, and it's just a number really. Whereas you do that in a combustion car, and regardless of kind of what it is, even just driving in a straight line at very high speed, you know what's going on, you can hear what's going on, you feel what's going on. So that's why I think so many of these projects where people can, so we can do stuff that OEMs can't from a delivery perspective. We don't have the restrictions that they have in terms of all kinds of elements. So we and others can deliver products that can allow that bit more emotion and that bit more link to what's going on.
Do you think there is also an element of people, even if the perception isn't real, of thinking that this is kind of like last chance saloon and we should get these cars now while we can, because in 10 years' time, who knows if it'll even be possible? So do you think there is a lot of that going on? And does that inform your business plans for the future too? Do you anticipate not being able to do this sort of stuff in the not too distant future?
Well, so I'll ask you guys a question. How many times have you read in a press release that it's the last V12?
Yeah, well, indeed. Yes. And remarkably, it's turned out not quite to be that.
Yeah, right. So I think that kind of answers that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, listen, we we need to wrap this one up fairly soon. But I mean, it is amazing hearing about some of the projects that you've got going on there. Do you think motorsport is going to continue to be a big part of what you do, and maybe there are some interesting projects on the horizon?
It's definitely going to carry on being the kind of core and the soul of the business. So I've got my wall. This is now the kind of customer speccing room, and it's glass walled, so we can see the cars in build, etc. On the wall at the end is a pit board with a picture of the car at the top, P39, and a countdown of days underneath to the date we're going to unveil the first customer version.
Wow.
When it was in the run up to Sywell, to the Supercar Fest, same thing. Every day the number dropped down, and that's the motorsport heritage is super important, and the main reason for that, the innovation is one thing, but timekeeping is the other. Qualifying never moves. If you're developing a new product, that's when it's got to be out. That's when it's got to be
absolutely
out and racing. And it's great for innovation. And it's a great way to get engineers thinking outside the box. One of the best tools we've actually got for that is back to the U2, back to Ray's Mark II. So we still do a lot of apprenticeships and graduate programs and that kind of stuff. And the graduates will come in they're in the chassis design office, for example. They will do work where they're designing new sensor mounts for that car. The technicians will cycle through and work on those cars, and it's a great way to remind people that things don't need to be complicated. Simplicity does often work, and is often the best solution. So that motorsport thought process is always going to drive the business. Our CTO has been with us for 20 years, and he came to us to lead the chassis design on the Chevrolet World Touring Car program. So he's very much historically motorsport at the core, and that's consistent through the business. In terms of us doing motorsport programs, I'd love us to be back at Le Mans.
I mean, does the fact that you can now do an LMDH car so much more affordably than would have been possible to do a P1 car in the past, does that kind of like bring that into your orbit in a way that simply wouldn't have been possible 5 years ago?
It kind of does.
Yeah.
We are, through the power division, we have supported an OEM or two in two top tiers of motorsport with
Sure.
Development of technology that's going into those. So we're very much involved in motorsport, dotted through. In terms of delivering a program for an OEM, it is now much more affordable. You're talking sub 20 million investment now for development in first year kind of thing.
Yes.
Whereas it was easily 80, 100 million it was before. And sports car racing's in an amazing state, isn't it, at the moment?
It is.
Gosh, it
Great.
really is.
It's fantastic. I would love us to do so. There's nothing on the cards at the moment for that, but
Okay.
other bits are happening.
And finally, are you going to be letting scumbag journalists drive the P39 at some stage?
Only ones who say really nice things about our previous product. So.
Well, my record on that front, as far as the short wheelbase is concerned, isn't too terrible.
Yeah.
No, it's good. And just on, so Dan, you drove the short wheelbase at Millbrook, didn't you? Which I think was about 3 days after it had its wheels on it for the first time.
Yeah, it was an early prototype. Yeah.
It was super early. Did I ever tell you that you're only having half throttle?
I don't think you did. No.
No. So I thought this feels really odd, and it was only getting half throttle.
Right.
And no one spotted it, but that really highlighted the lack of importance in the power race.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. But what I did notice was how lovely it flowed around that alpine handling course up in the hills at Millbrook. And yeah, it had that lovely fluid ride, but also that bit of body control. It just lets you feel the car underneath you, and it's exactly what I like in cars.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we will wrap this one up now. Before everyone disappears, I'll just remind you all that as a podcast listener, you can get a 20% discount on your subscription to the Intercooler. Just head to the-intercooler.com or click the link in the show notes and use coupon code POD20 to get your 20% discount on the first year. And for the next 12 months, every month, we're giving away a Supernatural car care kit to one subscriber worth 125 quid. So if you subscribe, maybe you'll be the lucky one. Michael, I'm glad you came on and I'm glad you're doing this bespoke stuff, because RML absolutely needs to be celebrated, and people need to know about it, because it's a great British engineering company doing fabulous work well beyond the realms of just racing, but in the road car world as well and beyond. And so hopefully we can help get the word out there a little bit, and we'll be keeping a very, very close eye on P39 and a close eye on our email inbox, waiting for the invitation as well.
Noted. Great to join you. Great to chat. It's always a pleasure talking about what our guys do.
Yeah. Well, it's been fascinating. Thank you for coming on, Michael. And to everyone listening and watching, thank you ever so much. And we'll be back again next week.
See you then.